But in the last 3 years, Israel has committed the crime of genocide against the Palestinians. Israeli human rights organizations have been the first to denounce since February 2024. I received the first documentation of torture and rape against Palestinians in jail in February 2024. Now there are 4,000 Palestinians, 4,000 people who have been arrested or detained, and there is no track of them. Israel doesn't know where they are.
So,
okay, I can tell you, as a special rapporteur, I have not focused on Israel per se as a state, but Israel as an occupying power in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. And in this land, where Israel has no jurisdiction, which Israel occupies illegally, according to the International Court of Justice, and Israel violates international law constantly, and has been committing many crimes, including the crime against humanity of apartheid, of a racial discrimination institutionalized in order to maintain dominion over the Palestinians, and other crimes like widespread arbitrary arrest and detention, forced displacement, and often use of torture against the Palestinians. But in the last 3 years, Israel has committed the crime of genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, but it is my reading against the Palestinians as a whole. This is a state that should be suspended from the United Nations, and it's a state that should be sanctioned by the United Nations. Should be economic sanctions should be imposed, and a military embargo for sure. I am particularly concerned, but also by the destruction of the international legal order that Israel is leading, together with the full destruction of Gaza. Look, I mean, this is my 8th report, and in a way, I think that my reports can be read in continuity. Over the past, so out of 8 reports, 3 have been written in the context of a genocide. So I have documented acts of genocide. I've explained in a second report on genocide why Israel was committed genocide. It is intentionally destroying Palestinians as part of the Palestinian people in order to have their land and have the land free of Palestinians. So I spoke of a colonial erasure. And then last year, in 2025, I wrote 2 reports investigating why the genocide is not stopped. Why does it continue? Because of the complicity of member states and the private sector, banks, pension funds, the arms industry, and so many are profiting from it. And the last report about torture is different, and because it looks again very closely at what it's happening to the people, to the individuals. It's based on individual testimonies, and also covers something that has not been fully exposed and fully understood. It's not what Israel does in daylight. It's something that Israel does away from public scrutiny, and it's absolutely brutal what has been done to tens of thousands of people who have been arrested and detained over the past 3 years. First of all, what is genocide? Genocide is a particular crime, particularly difficult to prove. But why? Because it should be particularly difficult to commit a genocide, in the sense the current legal framework is strong enough to prevent a genocide. A genocide is the intentional destruction of a group as such through act killing, through the creation of conditions of life calculated to destroy members of a group, for example, starving them, leaving people without medicines, etc. Or through the infliction of severe bodily or mental harm, think of torture, physical and psychological torture, or through the prevention of birth or the subtraction of minors. 4 of these acts of genocides have been documented, 3 by me and 4 by the 3+1 by the Commission of Inquiry on Israel-Palestine. And you know, there is also an ICJ, an International Court of Justice set of provisional measures that were adopted by the court in January 2024, recognizing the risk of genocide based on evidence that is recorded in January 2024. This is enough member states to solve genocide, to prevent. So it's true that you need to wait for a court to decide whether it's genocide or not. Otherwise, the Convention to Prevent the Crime of Genocide wouldn't make sense, wouldn't be able to save any other life. Yeah, so let me explain for those who might not be familiar with the case. So Israeli soldiers, prison services, police officers have brutally treated the Palestinians since October 2023 in a very unprecedented manner. So while Palestinians have been tortured before and have been mistreated, what has happened to them from October 2023 onward is without precedent. One clear feature that has been documented also by the United Nations Committee Against Torture is that there are very clear indications, there is evidence of a state policy, so of an organized system to torture Palestinians, so to inflict intentionally severe bodily or mental harm. But what is another feature is rape. Rape, meaning there is a lot of sexual abuse. Palestinians, both men and women, have been tortured in general area. Very, very recurrent. I mean, hundreds of testimonies speak of this, of not just humiliation and exposure, but men and women being violently beaten on their genitals. But what has been a consistent feature of this sexual abuse is that it was not limited to this. It often escalated into rape. Rape that has been committed mostly against men, but also against women, by soldiers. This is what we're talking about. It's disgusting. It's something else. This is why I say this is genocide. It's something that is without precedence. The sadism that is used against the Palestinians is without comparison and without respite. I would say, tell me what? It's a very, say that I base myself on misinformation is a very generic statement that frankly is not enough to disprove any of my allegations. So I tell to those who criticize the report, like the Israelis primarily, and followed by, no time, even the United States have not complained, but it's been mainly the Israelis, because no one can deny the avalanche of information that is coming out from Palestinian survivors, from their lawyers, from medical inspections, from Israeli human rights organizations. The Israeli human rights organizations have been the first to denounce since February 2024. I received the first documentation of torture and rape against Palestinians in jail in February 2024. And so it's, and even after my report was published, there has been yet another report. So I'm saying, well, if you think that I'm using misinformation, tell me what? Tell me what of my report is not correct, because it's too easy to dismiss it, saying, oh, it's misinformation. No, it's very well detailed, and this is why it's so difficult to challenge it. I know what I'm doing. I've consulted. I normally consult with at least 10, 12 experts, but when I have done the report. So I've consulted with lawyers, with Palestinian organizations, and other experts whom might not want to be named. What I used was based on three kinds of sources: direct testimonies, indirect testimonies collated by other organizations, and submissions that came from survivors, lawyers, and other organizations. So there has been a variety of sources, and actually very, very few things could not be confirmed. For example, there were some allegations that I couldn't confirm was about the organ transplants, which has been even reported by some, but I didn't write about that, simply because this is not something I verified. But something else that is absolutely shocking is the number of enforced disappearances. Voila, this is a crime that Israel had yet to be committed against the Palestinians in such a violence. And now there are 4,000 Palestinians, 4,000 people who have been arrested or detained, and there is no track of them. Israel doesn't know where they are. Because, you know, there is a difference between people who cannot be found, so to be under the rubble. They could have died or they could have left, and they cannot be traced. But then enforced disappearance is when there is the suspicion that, or a strong indication that this person, the person has been taken by security service, by security forces, by the police, by the army, and has not been, and it's held in incommunicado, and there is no possibility to track the person. The person cannot be found. There are 4,000 in this situation. Yeah. It's huge. It's immense. But if you think that of the 75,000 people who have been reported killed, just killed by trauma, so a bullet, a sniper fire, or a bomb, then there are 3,000 who have been evaporated. Evaporated means that Israel has used the weapons that have melted everything, that have pulverized the surfaces, that have melted the plastic tents in which they were. And the heat was so strong that their bodies dissolved, evaporated. It's shocking. Look, I know that what I'm saying is, sounds absurd, but this is the reality in Gaza. This is why it's shocking. It's shocking that member states are not taking concrete steps against Israel, concrete measures. Oh yeah, many. I think the majority of states support my work. Those who do not are the states who are clearly complicit with Israel's crimes. And I'm glad that these states are so-called democracies, so the will of the people can lead to a change, because this is what, the peaceful means of revolutions stay longer than violence, but they serve the purpose. So I do believe that respect for international law is necessary. But for example, there is the US and Germany are the second and the largest weapon providers to Israel. France is among the countries with the highest percentage of double nationals, meaning French Israeli nationals who have been fighting in the army. Then there are Belgian citizens, German citizens, Italian citizens, UK citizens who have double nationality and have fought in the army. So these states are all very pro-Israel, very pro-apartheid. They don't care about the Palestinians. They say that they are sorry. They say that there is a humanitarian crisis. But they do not admit, they do not concede that Israel is committing crime. They keep on defending Israel as acting in self-defense. And I think that this is legally and morally wrong. This is, it's beyond just reproachable. This is support to crimes. And so it should be legally considered by courts of law. I'm so relieved to see, for example, that in countries like Australia, in Denmark, in Italy, in the UK, in France, there are lawyers who are taking action both against complicit governments and against corporations. This is why I do believe that we are going, the system will have to change. Now in Italy, for example, the government, after 2 years and a half of pressure, starts to change its position because pressure works. But the majority of countries do not want this. It's just that they are not strong enough to stand against the United States. No, not fire. So, my husband is very, we have many friends in Indonesia because we used to live there. My husband has worked for the World Bank in Jakarta for 6 years. So people know him. He has a stellar career because he's bright and very committed. So he was, after Indonesia, moved to Tunisia. And after Tunisia, was supposed to move to the US, but because of the sanctions against me, we couldn't go. So my husband was had been appointed as the country economist for Syria. And after the sanctions, he was removed from his post and he was assigned to another job without him, without appeal, because of pressure on the World Bank. But of course, the strongest impact is being felt by me because I am on the list of drug dealers. So I cannot enter the United States. I cannot have a bank account. I cannot have a bank account anywhere because I cannot perform financial transactions, because when it comes to banking, we are under US law. And it's been very, very hard for me. And thank God I have family and friends supporting me. But it's a shame because I'm a UN expert on mission. So I am protected under the Convention on Privileges and Immunities. It's like if the United States were sanctioning an ambassador. They cannot do that. We have a diplomatic protection. But nonetheless, I said that this is part and parcel of an attack against the UN system. And also our goods and assets in US, where we used to live and we gave birth to our first daughter, have been frozen. Like if we were criminals, honestly. Look, I didn't know it would become so onerous. Honestly, I fear for those who will come next, because probably had I known how hard it could be, I wouldn't do that. I don't know. But now I am in this, and I think on the one hand, I don't know, I feel compelled to do what I do because a genocide is intolerable. And if I drop this, what kind of example am I giving to others? Others that need to understand that it's time for everyone to act. We need to do the right thing. And so I hope to continue to be an example of true and honest commitment to human rights. But also, I want to keep on being the voice of, I'm a proud European. I'm very happy to represent also my country, even if my government doesn't approve, because I think that Europe has a tragic past, has a horrible past toward countries in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, and we need to do better. I really believe in a decolonized multilateralism that starts with the commitment of everyone for what is just and what is right. And I cannot beat my values. That it's a very silly argument, because I don't ask for the elimination of Israel. I ask Israel to comply with international law. The problem is not in what I say. The problem is in people who believe that the only possibility for Israel to exist is through an apartheid state, a state that annihilates, that kills, that starves, that tortures, that rapes innocent people and mistreat everyone, because this is what Israel does to the Palestinian. Israel predicates its existence upon the annihilation of the Palestinians. Yes, I am hostile to this vision, but I'm not hostile to Israel. I'm not hostile to the Israeli people, but I believe that the Israeli people who have committed crimes must be investigated and prosecuted. Oh, I'm 100% sure that apartheid would cease in matter of months if member states declared arms embargo and stop trade with Israel. Israel is a small country and lives selling weapons and surveillance system to every country, and let me say, including to countries who have officially no diplomatic relations with Israel. So it's it's very simple. We live in an interconnected economic world, and if it was not for the businesses profiting from and helping Israel in the displacement of the Palestinians, Israel would not be able to displace Palestinian build illegal settlements on land. It would not, because Israel's companies, for example, cement, to advertise the property of the Palestinians, to sell or to rent in occupied land. Israel uses trading service of European companies, the roads, the railways, the electricity grid, everything is powered through companies abroad. Let me be very honest. Joining the Board of Peace has nothing to do with supporting Palestine. And this is why I was very, very, very surprised to see countries like Indonesia, Pakistan, and Jordan sitting in that disgrace that is the Board of Peace. I think that the United Nations has reached its lowest point in paving the way through UN Security Council resolution through the Board of Peace. But the Board of Peace that has emanated from that resolution is a monstrosity, because it has nothing to do with the United Nations. In fact, it's a betrayal of the United Nations principle of equality and friendly relations among nations. It's just the opposite. It celebrates, it consolidates and cements the US imperialism, but not even US imperialism. It's like a megalomaniac leader, because President Trump aims to sit in his personal capacity. It's unacceptable. It's never seen in modern history, such something like that. And I regret that there are countries I deeply appreciate, like Indonesia, that play the game, play along. But even the World Bank sits in this board of, and now says, what are you doing? The very fact of sitting in an entity that where Israel also sits, it's shameful, because Israel has no rights whatsoever in occupied Palestinian territory. Indonesia should be reminded, and Indonesia knows, because Indonesia has always been a strong advocate for Palestine and for Palestinian self-determination. But there is an ICJ, an International Court of Justice advisory opinion, that declares the occupation unlawful and to be dismantled totally and unconditionally. Therefore, there is no reason to sit with Israel and discuss Israel's presence in the Board of Peace and in the reconstruction of Gaza. Again, this is a critical and shameful betrayal of the Palestinians, all the more when they are being slaughtered. Because, for example, I know that the Board of Peace envisages the sending invasion troops to the ground, but again, what about the will of the Palestinians? Have the Palestinians asked for it? Of course, it would be better to have Indonesian soldiers than Israeli soldiers. But this is not what is requested under international law. Under international law, the only military presence should ensure that Israel gets out of the occupied Palestinian territory, if you see what I mean. Not to go there like on a sort of procurement by Israel and the United States. These two states have nothing to do with Palestine. The only relations of these two states and these two administrations or government with Palestine should be again investigated under proceedings for acts of genocide, as it's happening to Israel, or complicity with acts of genocide. I think that it happened to the United States as well as it's happening to Germany. Yeah, I would ask these people to comment on the fact that Israel maintains a legal regime, military law, for Palestinians for 56 years, that Israel applies emergency laws and lawful combatants laws to Palestinians, particularly in Gaza, applies the death penalty to Palestinians only. So Israel should not even rule over the Palestinians, but it does. It's international law. And instead of ruling through civil law, as it does, for example, in the Golan with the Syrian occupied population, the Palestinians are under Israeli military law. Palestinians are not protected when they are aggressed. There is no justice for the Palestinians. If this is not a differential regime based on racial grounds, what is it? Of course, it's apartheid. Frankly, it's not, and it's so well documented by UN mechanisms, by the United Nations Special Committee on Israeli Practices, my predecessor, Professor Michael Link, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Palestinians and human rights organizations. It's been documented for more than 5 years now. Just, it's easy to say that is not true, but there is no evidence supporting the it's not true argument. It's so childish, no? To say it's not true. Oh, it's possible. It's really possible. And, member states should stop buying and selling and trading weapons and security systems with Israel, because this is what Israel has been testing on the Palestinians. The Palestinians have been keeping in a sadistic laboratory where technologies, modern weaponries, and modern surveillance have been tested. And then sanctions must be imposed. If they are not imposed by the Security Council, as it's likely, then member states must cut trade. But meanwhile, people like you and me, or your family and family, have power, because they must adhere to the BDS list. And this is why I'm saying, imagine all Indonesians, 256 million people, stopping to buy, the products that are on the BDS list. I truly hope that we will be able to circulate the list of companies and services that should be boycotted. Even the government should be encouraged not to use services and companies that connected to the illegality of the occupation. Also, check your banks. For those there are many wealthy Indonesians. Check that your banks do not invest your savings into the military industry, because I know that this is the one that has allows for the greater profits. This is what is going to destroy all of us in the long term. It's just a matter of time. And also, another thing is that it's important to join the ICC and ICJ proceedings against Israel. Also, I don't know if this is the case in Indonesia, but there are many Israelis. I know that Israelis are not allowed to enter with their own passport in Indonesia. Because there are no bilateral relations between Indonesia and Israel. Nonetheless, there are many soldiers, many IDF soldiers who have double nationalities. And there is enough information to check on them, to check and make sure that those who have been fighting in the army, so there is the human rights and other lawyers, surely there are also Indonesian lawyers that have information on those who have fighting in the army, and they should be suspended. They should not be allowed to rest and recover in your country. No, I just want to, I would like to tell the Indonesian government that I really trust them that Indonesia has always been on the right side of history when it comes to Palestine. And I hope the trajectory will not change. I've lived for 6 years in Indonesia. I was there during President Jokowi presidency, and I've seen how much Indonesia has done for Palestine. I also want to say, I want to salute the Indonesian people, whom I miss very much. Their kindness and their joy is just something that me and my family will bring in our heart forever.